Introduce Bettina and welcome her. This is an ongoing weekly class. I'm not going to do this. I'm just doing this actually because I'm excited to have Bettina here. Bettina was one of the first people I met at Shifeng Temple 20 years ago. And so quite a journey we've all been on. And I'm just really, really honored and grateful to have Bettina here with us. And thank you all for being here and showing up. And Bettina, this is the best we get, so good luck.
Thank you so much.
They're all yours.
So why don't we just sit together for a couple of minutes before we get started so we can just all really arrive and settle into the space. I'm just going to ring the bell once and just invite us to come into stillness and whatever that means to you, just to give a chance to really fully arrive here in body and mind. So thank you so much for fully arriving into the space, whether you're here in person at the temple or whether you're online. I can't actually see you, unfortunately, but I know that you're there. So welcome, everyone. And I just wanted to also say how honored I feel to be here. Jeff has already said that we've known each other for a very long time and became friends at Shifeng Temple and actually practiced there together for quite a number of years. And I'm really happy to be able to share a few of the teachings on Buddhist mindfulness with you over the next several weeks. Like Jeff said, it's going to be an ongoing class on Wednesday nights from 7 to 8. And I will try my very best to honor your time and really make it from 7 to 8. So there will always be a talk that I'll give, and then also a guided meditation leading into silence and some time for questions and answers. So I will make time for that at the end always. And since this is our first class together, I would like to begin today by giving a guided welcoming meditation for everyone. I'm not going to do that every time, but just to give a sense that everyone that comes through the doors here, whether you're here walking actually literally through the doors or whether you're entering through the door of the online forum, to just have a sense that you are welcome here, no matter where you came from. And I know that it's hard, maybe especially with a new person up here, to feel a sense of, okay, I can fully relax into this space, I feel fully safe, but at least to send the message that we're all here together and that we're all here and welcome no matter what walks of life we've come from into this space. So it's just going to be a shorter guided meditation, and all that's really required of you is just to inviting you to close your eyes if you feel comfortable with that. If for whatever reason you're not comfortable, if you could just maybe gaze at a spot, down below, so that your eyes are not wandering around the room, so you can just really invite yourself into your own space and into your own body, and then just basically receiving the words that I'll speak into your own being. So we can just do that now, maybe taking a moment together, whether with closed eyes or open eyes, whether you're seated here in the temple or seated at home or wherever you are. Just take a moment to more fully arrive into your body, into your own space. And perhaps beginning by simply feeling the weight of your body as you're sitting here. Noticing the parts of the body that are in contact with the floor, with your cushion, with your seat. And inviting your body as best as you can to relax into your seat, into your space. Maybe just taking a moment to notice internally, what does it feel like inside? What are my sensations in the body that I'm noting at this moment? Whether there's any tingling, or pressure, or vibrating, heat or cold. Just taking a note of what you're feeling in the body at this moment. And then in the midst of this bodily experience, see if you can begin to bring your attention to the sensations of your breathing. Whether you're feeling that in the belly or chest as they rise and fall with each in-breath and out-breath. Or whether it's more of an experience of feeling the breath in your whole body. Whatever it is, just using the breath as an anchor that keeps connecting you with your experience in this present moment. So that the mind and the body and the heart are all connected in the room that you're in the space that you're in. And then I'm just simply inviting you to receive these words. We welcome all of us and the countries and cultures represented here. We welcome our economic backgrounds and our current life circumstances. We welcome our bodies of all sizes, abilities, and challenges, whether visible or invisible. We welcome our minds of all abilities and challenges, whether visible or invisible. We welcome those of us who are new to trainings like this, and those with a great deal of related experience. We welcome all ages and the path we're on at this moment in our lives. We welcome our faith traditions and all the guiding beliefs on how to live our lives. We welcome all the languages we bring and the many ways we speak English. We welcome all of our genders, however we identify. We welcome our sexual orientations. We welcome each and every one of us in this rich complexity of our identity, including dimensions that have not been mentioned here. We honor each of us in this work we're undertaking together, and we say welcome. So just take some time now to allow the words to settle onto your being, onto your heart. And again, connect with your body and the breath inside your body. And perhaps consider or check in if there are parts of yourself that could benefit from a deep welcome. Is there a part of you you don't normally invite into your practice, into your consciousness? A part that perhaps needs your caring attention. And if it's comfortable, you may even place a hand on your heart or someplace on the body. And taking a moment to welcome what you normally don't. And perhaps offering this part of you a phrase or some words of welcome. Just want to share this poem by a Japanese woman that lived many centuries ago to end this first part of our practice this evening. And her name was Itsumi Shikibo. Watching the moon at dawn, solitary, mid-sky, I knew myself completely, no part left out. And if you feel comfortable or for any reason you would prefer to keep your eyes closed for the talk, that's perfectly fine. However you want to be within your being, if you want to have your eyes open, it's all part of listening to the body and part of just learning to be mindful of what you need as part of your practice in any given moment, not just when we're sitting, but really in daily life at all times, as best as we can remember. As mindfulness is really very much a training and remembering moment by moment to be present. So this evening I would just like to give a talk on an introduction onto Buddhist mindfulness. And I'd like to begin with a story of a French reporter that once went to visit Plum Village in France. And I'm sure a lot of you have heard about Thich Nhat Hanh, the beloved Vietnamese Buddhist teacher that founded many temples around the world. He actually passed last year in January. And he has beautiful communities of monks and nuns in many different countries and many lay practitioners such as us, such as ourselves, that go to visit his temples. So there was this French reporter that was really curious about this monastery in France, his first monastery that Thich Nhat Hanh founded many years ago actually, and he wanted to write a story. So he went there one day to visit, and it's really in a very beautiful nature setting, this particular monastery. And he arrived there in the morning, and it was just a time when the monastics, the nuns and monks, were about to go on their walking meditation. And this is something that they do as a community where they invite lay practitioners and themselves to just take a slow, mindful walk on the earth. And just really enjoying the walk, enjoying the nature, being present to every step, being present to the breath and the body. Very much like we just started here tonight, just being generally mindful of what's going on inside of you and perhaps around you as well. So the French reporter was invited to join, and he did. And after the walk was done, the monks and nuns came up and they asked him, so how did you enjoy the walk? And he said, well, I could not enjoy the walk at all. My mind is just simply exhausted. And he basically shared that all he did during the walking meditation was just think about the story that he was going to write about Plum Village, about the center. So he might have been physically present, but he wasn't at all present in his mind. His mind was going off in many different directions, thinking about the story he wanted to write. So I'm sure that has happened to all of us in one way or another, where we might have been present, having a conversation with someone or listening to a talk or being in a group, and then we realized, oh, we didn't actually hear what they were saying, or I have no clue what just happened. My mind was thinking about the past, or I was worrying about the future. Is there anyone that hasn't happened to at all? Because if you are, you can basically go home now. So you don't need to come to attend the class at all, or come to the temple, or maybe you should then be up here teaching. So yes. And I'm certainly not, I just want to clarify, I'm certainly not that person that never goes off in 1,000 directions. So anyway, just want to say that obviously if the French reporter had had a mindfulness practice already, he would have had a way to just acknowledge, oh, my mind is really busy, my mind is really active in this moment. Let me gently bring my attention back to the body, back to the breath, and really be here, really fully show up for this experience, touching the earth with my feet, noticing that I'm walking, noticing that I'm surrounded by a beautiful community, maybe feeling the sun on my skin, and just really fully be present. So that's basically a very simple description of mindfulness, that when we notice that the mind is going off into the past or the future, we don't judge ourselves for it. We just simply, as soon as we notice, we bring our attention back to our presence, to our body, to our breathing. And one thing that I really appreciated that one of my teachers once said is that if I sit in meditation and then I notice all of a sudden 10 minutes later, oh my God, I have totally left here. I don't even know what I was doing the last 10 minutes. I certainly wasn't paying attention to my breathing. That as soon as you notice, that's actually a moment of mindfulness. So instead of thinking, oh gosh, I'm just not good at meditation, I can't focus on my breath, my mind is just too active, meditation is not for me. No, the moment that you're noticing that you're back, that you had gone away, that's a moment, yes, that's a moment of mindfulness. So that's very important to remember. So all this to say that mindfulness means that when our minds are racing, when we're maybe feeling distracted or exhausted, worried or upset, that we learn not to be swept away by that experience, that in the midst of an inner storm, we can begin to calm our energies inside by practicing mindfulness. And again, that just simply means that we are aware with loving attention what's happening inside of us, and as best as we can, very gently just guide the attention back to what's actually happening in the present moment. And we can learn to bring our attention to the breath or another part in the body that we can use as an anchor for meditation. And it's similarly, if you imagine a ship arriving in the harbor, in order for the ship to stay, you need to put an anchor down so that the ship doesn't go off. And so in the same way, in mindfulness meditation, or really any meditation, when we can use an anchor, such as our breath, to keep our mind connected with our body. And we'll have another session on mindfulness of breathing, where we can either use the breath as our focus, as our anchor, but really also anything really that feels like it's comfortable for you to use as an anchor. If the breath for some reason doesn't work, maybe it's just feeling the pressure of the buttocks on the cushion. Maybe it's feeling your hands resting in your lap. Maybe it's sounds for you. It's different things for different people. The breath is often used because it's just an easy flow of in-breath and out-breath, and it helps us to stay connected to that rhythm, but it can also really be something else. So there's a beloved Indian teacher that actually passed. He's no longer with us. His name was Munindra, and he was a lay practitioner, but many people saw and considered him fully awakened and on the Buddhist path. He was a very sought after teacher, and even though he didn't live his life as a monk, he was certainly very advanced on his path. And he was once asked why he practiced Buddhist meditation or mindfulness. And he basically said, so I can see the tiny purple flowers alongside the road as I walk into town each day, to live the life fully. So a way of defining mindfulness meditation is a loving awareness of our present moment experience and body, mind, and spirit. And in order to describe mindfulness meditation, Buddhist mindfulness meditation, they often use the metaphor of the two wings of a bird. And so then the one wing represents awareness of what is present in us. And then the second wing represents a kind, loving, and non-judgmental attention to what is actually happening inside of us. So it's not a harsh, okay, I just lost my breath, I can't believe, I'm still not able to focus on my breath, but like I already said, okay, my mind was just away for a couple of minutes, visiting something in the past or thinking of something in the future, and just very gently redirecting. So it's this presence combined with a non-judgmental, loving attention that together makes up Buddhist mindfulness meditation. And in the ancient Indian language that was actually spoken at the time of the Buddha, named Pali, the word for mindfulness is actually Satipatthana. And so Satipatthana is made out of two components or two parts. And so there's a receptive part and there's an active part. And so Sati, the first part of Satipatthana, is basically or simply mindfulness of this very non-judgmental, just simply being present that I already spoke about. And then secondly, Patthana, the second word, the second part of Satipatthana, refers to having an appropriate response to the present situation. So in Buddhist practice, with the Buddha's main focus on suffering and the end of suffering, in Buddhist practice, or the Buddha always said that the first and foremost response to any suffering inside of us or outside of us in the world is compassion. Meeting our own suffering, if we're sitting down in meditation, for example, and we're really getting in touch that there's anger present or that there's sadness present or grief present, that just kind of like we did earlier, that maybe we'll place a hand on our hearts and just see, there's sadness here right now, that we just be with this. That would be a compassionate response towards ourselves. And then also towards the suffering in the world. I think we all know just how much suffering there is out there in the world, and we can feel it in ourselves, and we can see it reflected in the world as well. So responding with compassion doesn't always mean that we have to roll over and just accept, okay, there's suffering in the world, let me just sit in meditation and all is going to be well. It can also be very much a fierce response of compassion. And what comes to mind for me often as a very beautiful response to suffering in the world is the civil rights movement in this country. I think that was such a beautiful and poignant response to how to address suffering. This way of meeting suffering with compassion, with non-harming, but really being present and standing up for what was wrong and what is wrong in the world. It's just like the Buddha often said in his lifetime, hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This is an eternal rule. Hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This is an eternal rule. So traditionally, the Buddha taught mindfulness as the four foundations as mindfulness, or the Satipatthanas, as we already used the Pali term a little bit earlier on. So this evening, I would just like to briefly go over the different foundations of mindfulness. And they are basically the body, mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of feelings, mindfulness of the mind, and mindfulness of dhammas, which are basically the teachings or what's happening in the world and how we can respond to it from a mindfulness perspective. So the first one, mindfulness of the body, can mean a lot of different things. And I encourage you, when we have meditation sessions, to maybe experience these different aspects of mindfulness of the body. So one, for example, is simply being aware of the senses. And you may, even with your eyes open right now, just tune into your senses with a little bit more mindfulness. So as you're seeing, really being aware of what you're seeing. What you're hearing, really being aware of what you're hearing in this moment. Maybe there's a smell that you can pick up. Maybe there's a lingering taste in your mouth that you're aware of. And also the touch, the parts of the body that are connecting to something that you're sitting on perhaps. Or maybe the touch of your clothes on your skin. Those are all different ways of experiencing mindfulness of the body through the senses. And the other part of mindfulness of the body can also be the sensations in the body. So for a moment, if you feel comfortable, you may close your eyes and again just notice what sensations are present right now. Maybe noticing the temperature in the body. Are there any parts that have a sense of tingling or vibrating? Any pressure? So just being aware or coming to be aware more fully of the sensations that might be happening in the body. And some of us might be thinking in this moment, well, actually, I don't feel anything. And that's okay too. And you're being mindful of not feeling anything, or maybe being mindful that there's a sense of numbness in the body. That's a sensation as well. So these are all ways of just becoming more intimate with your body from the inside out, feeling the aliveness from the inside out. And the other part of mindfulness of the body, the last one I would like to share this evening, that's covered in the in the sutra on the teachings on the four foundations of mindfulness by the Buddha are the elements that make up the body. So in Buddhism, the elements are considered the earth, so everything that's solid inside the body, like the bones, for example. And then the water element, all the liquidity in the body, everything that's liquid. And then the fire element, the heat, any temperature really that we're feeling in the body is considered heat. It can also be cool or warm, cold, heat. And then the wind element, everything that's moving inside the body. And we can often most easily connect with this element through our breath, the breath that's constantly moving in and out of our bodies. And then the second foundation of mindfulness is mindfulness of feelings. And here you might think, okay, so those are our emotions, right? Like sadness or grief or feeling pleasure or feeling upset or angry. And that's actually not what the Buddha referred to as mindfulness of feelings. And again, we're going to go over each and every one of those in subsequent classes. But here's just to say about what the Buddha meant by mindfulness of feelings is simply that in any given moment, all we can ever experience in our lives as an actual experience inside is either something that feels pleasant, unpleasant, or neither pleasant or unpleasant. So basically a neutral experience. These are really all the experience that we can ever have. Pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. And I'm sure that all of you have experienced that if there's something pleasant, maybe a delicious bowl of ice cream, oh, delicious, I want more of that. Or something that doesn't feel so pleasant, maybe there's a sense of anger arising, or maybe we're triggered by something and we wish that person weren't just so straight in our face right now, we wish they weren't sitting here with us tonight. So there's a pushing away. The unpleasant is normally in a human incarnation, something that we want to push away. And then a neutral experience is what we're not even aware of. For example, right now, you might tune in again to your body, and what is something that you're not aware of right now, a body part that you haven't even really paid attention to, that it's here with us, or with you rather. Or maybe there's something in the room that if you look around, oh, I hadn't actually noticed that before. That also falls under a neutral experience in the sense that we weren't even aware that that was happening. And then the third foundation of mindfulness refers to mindfulness of the mind. So for a lot of us, that might be the constant flow of thoughts that go through us, the incessant thinking, the brain that we can very easily stop from producing more and more thoughts moment to moment. And others might, have a mind that sees more in images, and there's sort of a constant flow of images going on in our minds. And then there's also the mind states of sadness, anger, desire, calm, restless, peaceful, withdrawn, distracted. Those all fall under the category of mindfulness of the mind. And then the last foundation of mindfulness, the Buddha referred to as mindfulness of dhammas. So a way to describe that is really the process of life itself. To be able to learn to be a witness to whatever's happening inside of us or outside of us, and learning not to become entangled into the experience or in the experience. So in meditation, we can learn to not identify with whatever is happening and to shift actually from thinking, I am sad, or I am angry, I am frustrated, and simply noting, oh, sadness is present right now, or calm is present right now, or irritation is present right now, So we're not making it so much of a personal I experience, but just rather noticing, oh, this is present right now inside of me, this is present outside of me, and here are the ways that I normally react to them or get triggered by them, and how can I make that more of an impersonal experience where we're simply noting what's actually present, what's actually happening in the moment right now. And that, of course, points to a very important teaching that the Buddha offered, and that is the teaching of impermanence, that we can actually learn through our meditation experience that whatever arises inside of us, maybe a moment of joy, we can observe that joy inside of the body, maybe even note what it feels like to be joyful. And then if we stay in meditation with the experience, the sensations of joy in the body, after a while we'll notice that it actually maybe shifts into another experience. Maybe joy turns into more calm or peace, or maybe it turns into an irritation or not knowing what's going on. So that is just to say that in meditation we can really learn the impermanence of all the experiences that we're having inside our body, but also outside of us, how everything just continuously shifts from moment to moment. Nothing is static, nothing ever stays the same. So it's really important to know that we don't practice mindfulness to stop ourselves from having a human experience, to leave our bodies, to not be part of this human realm anymore, but rather to see clearly that none of what we experience, like I already said, lasts forever, neither joy nor sorrow, and to free ourselves from clinging what we like and from rejecting what we don't like, and to simply come into alignment with how life manifests in this very moment, and learning through our Buddhist practice to respond with wisdom and compassion, as the Buddha taught us when he was alive. And then even though we think of mindfulness meditation as just something that we do for ourselves inside of us, mindfulness also very much relates to community. It relates to our interpersonal relationships and how we respond to different people that we encounter in our lives. So that's also really important to mention, that the Buddha had a very strong emphasis on Buddhist ethics, on our thoughts, actions, and speech, and how we can bring them in alignment with an ethical behavior so that they correspond to the teachings of non-harming in the world. Non-harming in the world, and also non-harming to and towards ourselves, so that we can meet the communities that we live in or the people that we encounter in our lives with a willingness to listen and to learn from everyone, and to basically stay open to everyone's experience, and also learn to begin to note what might be triggering in us when a person acts a certain way and speaks a certain way, and learn to observe our internal reactions, the responses that we're having to other people that we encounter in our lives. So mindfulness really asks us to stay open to our inner horizons, and also to refrain from using harmful speech and actions as best as we can. And if we do act in those ways, again, the Buddha didn't tell us to be harsh with ourselves, to heavily criticize ourselves, but rather to know, ooh, I regret that I just said that to that person. Let me just reflect on the situation. Maybe I could have said this instead, and I'm going to set an intention right now to meet my next moment from a place of more loving attention and loving speech as best as possible. So we can still respond kindly and with compassion, even when we are in disagreement with one another or with a person. And lastly, I just want to say that I love what the Dalai Lama always shared when he said that my religion is kindness. My religion is kindness. That was basically the main focus of his whole practice, was just to be kind to himself, to be kind to others. I'm going to do a time check. Why don't we just take a few moments to sit together, to just allow the words to settle. And finding a way that feels good to sit right now, maybe with an upright spine so that there can be an alertness in the mind. And at the same time, relaxed. A relaxed presence in the body and mind. And again, the invitation can be to close the eyes if that's comfortable to you. Or just a soft and gentle gaze down towards the spot on the ground in front of you to keep your attention internally focused. And I've already said a whole lot of words this evening, so why don't we just sit together quietly for several minutes. I'm going to ring the bell to start us out, and then I'm going to ring the bell again at the end. So just enjoy your presence. I'd like to read one more poem for maybe a short time of questions and answers to close out the meditation. And this one is by John O'Donoghue, an Irish poet and philosopher that a lot of you might know, have heard about. And this poem is called For Peace. As the fever of the day calms towards twilight, may all that is strained in us come to ease. We pray for all who suffered violence today. May an unexpected serenity surprise them. For those who risk their lives each day for peace, may their hearts glimpse providence at the heart of history. That those who make riches from violence and war might hear in their dreams the cries of the lost. That we might see through our fear of each other a new vision to heal our fatal attraction to aggression. That those who enjoy the privilege of peace might not forget their tormented brothers and sisters. That the wolf may lie down with the lamb, that our swords be beaten into plowshares, and no hurt or harm be done anywhere along the holy mountain. So if there's any questions that you might have, or even just a reflection of what the experience was like for you this evening, the same applies on the online chat. I hope I'll be able to manage this forum, but I'll do my very best. But if there's anything, a comment or a question, anything you'd like to share, maybe just take a moment silently to see if anything arises in this moment that would like to be shared out verbally or asked.
You talked about mindfulness in standing up to harm, and you gave the example of the civil rights movement. So my question is, how do you work with anger or despair when trying to look at injustice?
And you're saying, I'm assuming you mean your own anger and despair, or the anger that you're meeting out there, or both? Or
Yeah, the anger that I feel, or despair that I feel for the injustices out in the world.
Mhm. Yeah, I have a really dear friend, Jeff knows her, she's 90 now, her name is Cynthia. And she used to be an activist for a number of years. And she always tells me that in the early years before she discovered a Buddhist path, that all of her actions, her social actions, would come out of a real place of anger. And that she really noticed that as she took on a Buddhist path, that she became very aware that first of all, she needed to meet whatever is out there, be it violence or injustices, with compassion towards herself. In other words, to soothe and calm her anger first. And then when she could come from a more peaceful or equanimous place, to then go out and, conduct a social action or an intervention or whatever it might be. But it became very clear to her that meeting violence or hatred with hatred, like the Buddha said so beautifully, is not a way. It's basically just creates more harming within yourself, and then you're just putting out more anger out there. So if you feel like there's just a lot of challenging emotions that come up with it, then it's probably best to just sit with it and to attend to your own internal world first, and just find ways to soothe yourself first so that you can meet what's there. I feel like it's a little bit like in general in meditation, when we feel maybe one meditation, I have a lot of spaciousness, I can really sit with difficult emotions that are coming up, there's enough space that I have internally. And then another day you might feel like I'm absolutely bombarded with dukkha, with suffering, and I can't even sit here for a moment. And maybe the skillful way at that time would be actually to get up and to walk, or to open your eyes and look around, reorient yourself in the room. So it basically calls for a skillful reaction, being really learning to be in touch with what's happening on the inside and what's the best way to respond on the outside from a place of compassion. So I don't know if that answers a little bit of your question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for asking that. It's a very important question, how to be with what's going on in a skillful way, in a non-harming way.
Question.
Yeah,
How can mindfulness or Buddhism help with a strained relationship with a family member?
that's a wonderful question. It's a very personal question for me. There was a time, actually for many years, where I felt that I could not have a relationship with my mother. There was a lot of narcissism that I had learned about in therapy that I had gone through, and that basically my world was to revolve around her needs. And it became really skillful. I learned to really set some very clear boundaries and to really learn to take care of myself. And I don't want to make this about a happy ending. Sometimes there is no happy ending. Sometimes the best way is to know I can love this person from afar. I can send them loving kindness, and we'll talk about this and practice that here in subsequent weeks as well. And other time, for whatever reason, maybe through your own practice, through your own compassion practice, learning to give yourself a whole lot of compassion first. Maybe at some point a door opens inside of you and there's a way where maybe I'll try again, maybe I'll have a conversation, maybe something has happened, shifted in her or in him. And, just remembering everything's impermanent, even a relationship can change or will likely change. Even a relationship never stays the same. But again, that's not to mean that you should feel pressure to try, just an invitation to just see what might change and shift as you give yourself compassion, and maybe also reflect on why this person might be acting the way they are, and just always keeping in mind when somebody treats you poorly or acts unskillfully, they're likely going through some type of suffering, some type of dukkha. And again, that's not to excuse harmful behavior, but just simply to know, oh wow, this person might be really suffering right now. And that's easier said than done when it's a family member or a loved one. It's easier said when you don't know that person or just watch the news. Well, sometimes it might not be as easy or easy either. But just like the Buddha said, the best response is always compassion first. Those are wonderful questions. I appreciate that. Yeah.
I just wanted to share, I have heard the instruction before, but I've forgotten it to say like sadness is here, fear is here, as opposed to I feel sad, I feel fear.
Mhm.
And I spent today dealing with a very difficult situation with a family member over my mother dying, my mother getting really ill. It's really painful, but I've practiced all day and tried to bring mindfulness to it, but I was really stuck on that, like, I feel this way, and so that was really helpful for me to hear that tonight. I'm going to try to incorporate that, so thank you.
welcome. Just to know this is present right now. Anger is present, or sadness is present. And just to the invitation to actually bring that from the head down into the body and to actually notice with a sense of curiosity, what does grief actually feel like in the body? And it brings us a lot closer to what's actually here instead of spinning out a story in the mind, and it gives us a chance to really show up for whatever emotion is present, and again, to meet that with compassion. Yeah, so I'm glad. It's wonderful. Not that it's still easy, but it's still, it's a practice. It's a practice. Yeah. Yes.
What was the name of the author of that last poem that you read? That was really beautiful.
John O'Donohue. Yeah, he's an Irish poet and philosopher. So Don O'Donohue, so Donohue. Donohue. Yeah, you're welcome. Yes.
I'm not sure if I can articulate it, but I'm gonna try. So, due to just a lot of changes in my life and things going on in my family and a move and so many things, I've been dealing with what I sometimes term depression, but when I really sat with it, it's sadness. It's not like I feel like if I name it depression, like it becomes like an outfit or something that I'm gonna wear. And so I feel like it's just sadness. And so I have ways to combat that. To work with it. And so right now I'm doing like aspiration practice where I'm working with vows to, and so what I came down to, what I'm working with is the vow to abide in like the truth of impermanence, that this sadness is not always going to be here, but there's a part of me that doesn't believe that. And so can I practice it and also not fully believe it? And also, does Buddha nature include being super sad sometimes?
I've often heard the expression, when you're sad, just be a sad Buddha. And also to remind you that whatever feeling or emotion might be present, like you said, is impermanent, but also as you move on, as you walk on your Buddhist path, that we really just learn to note pleasant and unpleasant. Like in this case, I'm assuming that you've labeled the sadness as unpleasant. And sometimes that can just remove yourself a little bit from it as well. But really the encouragement to just embrace the sadness as best as you can. And notice when there's aversion in the mind towards the sadness or the depression when it's arising, like something that you don't want to be there. And maybe just sort of softening your awareness around it a little bit to where it's almost like a visitor coming to wherever you might be living, and maybe offering it a cup of tea, as they would say in Zen Buddhism, or actually Tibetan Buddhism. I think there's actually in Tibetan Buddhism a practice where you want to invite in all the challenging emotions, so they actually put out a piece of cake on the altar as an offering for the sadness to fully show itself. And an invitation just to investigate it. And investigate, again, doesn't mean with my mind, let me put my mind to it. Depression is like wearing an outfit, and I want this to be more fluid, but rather, okay, it seems like sadness is present right now. What does that actually feel like in the body? Maybe there's a pressure in the heart. Maybe your heart feels heavy. Whatever you're noticing, and just to learn how to be with your emotion in a compassionate way instead of pushing it away, and just to try that out and see how that feels, or what happens with that. Yeah. And I love how you said that you like to label it sadness rather than depression, because depression feels more solid, like it's this thing in the room that's always going to be here. And with sadness, it's more, okay, this is an emotion that's present in me. And I know if I can just be with this in a compassionate way, it will likely move on, but not even making it the point of moving on, but rather just taking an interest, maybe again, putting a hand on the heart and just being with it, listening to it. It probably has something to share with you, some wisdom in it. Like the Buddha said, it's all about compassion and wisdom on practice. So, was that helpful at all? I'm also aware of the time. Jeff told me that everybody would be walking out at 8, so I'm surprised you're still here. And I have all the time in the world this evening, so I'm not trying to push you out the door, but I just want to acknowledge if you have to leave, absolutely get up and walk out, and I'll deal with my own emotion around it. But yeah, maybe just sit for another moment and see, is there a question or a comment yet that's sort of on your lips that you really want to share or not. All right, it sounds like some people have decided to leave and we're ready to go. So I really appreciate that you showed up this evening. I hope you got something out of it to take home with you as your practice. And perhaps see you again another Wednesday. Wonderful to be here. Thank you so much.
So again, I'm not going to do this every Wednesday, but I just want to say this quiet, gentle, brilliant, beautiful person is the fiercest fighting warrior I have ever known. And the most beautiful thing about Bettina is Bettina has done this work. Everything that is being shared has poured into your life the last 20 plus years. So just thank you. A long way from 2003. Wondered why we waited so long, but I'm also wondering here we are. So,
yes.
But as your Dharma Bum host for the evening, my name is Jeff. We opened up this temple 17 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those who lead are not nuns or monks or gurus or masters. They're not teachers. They're not looking for students. They're just practitioners. So we do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. Every night we have different practices going on, different people leading from different Buddhist traditions. Every Thursday we do a food redistribution program, so if you ever want to get out of yourself and actually just make sandwiches and feed people who sleep on the streets every night, that's every Thursday at 5 o'clock. And we have quite a large recovery sangha, so anyone battling addiction, drugs, alcohol, whatever the addiction might be, that meets just about every day, either here or online. So we appreciate you all showing up. We're really excited to be changing schedule and having some new things going on. Our Dharma Bum Basics meditation discussion circle will continue Thursday nights. We'll be bringing in some really special, cool people to lead that. For tomorrow, you'll be stuck with me leading that, but then that will just continue as usual. So thanks all for being here. If you can help just straighten up the cushions and chairs, and maybe some people help lock the windows. We appreciate it again. Thank you.
Thank you so much.